Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Briefcase in the Barn, a show with me and Gary Baars, a series of the Furiously Curious show.
Episode 9.
Episode 10.
10.
Where we talk about business, Christianity, life, and more. Show sponsor is Arbonne. Arbonne is a health supplement, link in the description below, that I use every day in the morning. Take some greens, some gut health, use some other stuff. And Gary gives me crap because he says it's a pyramid scheme. I mainly just care about the product. But we have a group chat with my wife and I and Gary and his wife. And she messaged us me a nice, beautiful picture of some Arbonne she was taking. And she liked the combo. And
placebo effect. Whatever.
And so I said, as if Gary was saying, I said, how can you like a pyramid scheme in the morning? I was pretending I was Gary saying that. And she says, yeah, well, Gary has a cold for 3 weeks now. Maybe it's time he climbs onto the pyramid. So if you want to be healthy and feel good about yourself, you should try it. 3 months. Arbonne.
It's not the worst pyramid scheme.
I seen actually this week the Tupperware one broke.
Yes. Speaking of pyramid schemes.
Yeah.
Or Amway.
They were around for a long time.
Or Amway. I don't know if Amway's still around. My parents were part of the Amway thing when I was a kid. I think that's probably where it comes from. Most of our deeply ingrained beliefs come from deep childhood.
If it's an actual if these are actual pyramid schemes, wouldn't they not pass government regulation under like some?
You're thinking laws? A Ponzi scheme.
Oh, okay, that's Ponzi.
Big difference. Ponzi scheme is an actual thievery.
Okay.
Pyramid scheme is a real sales thing. I mean, you're buying a real product, and some, they're selling you something. Yeah. I mean, like I would argue what's in the powder, but there's fat margin, and there's enough fat margin that everybody down lower on the scale behind you, I mean, realtors have products like this where they bring people into the brokerage and they get paid the same way. It's basically a big,
talk about
it's very
fat
good
margin, talk about realtors and fat margin.
It's less than you think, actually.
Oh.
Like the actual check off is huge, but the costs are high. I would agree that the commission is high, especially because realtors get the same commission they did when housing was like a quarter of the price less than 10 or 15 years ago. So, but the costs have gone up a lot. Video, marketing, advertising, it's expensive.
How you doing? Good week?
Pretty good. Lots of real estate deals going on.
Okay.
Yeah.
I seen you sold the one house.
Yeah.
Or accepted offer.
Accepted offer, yeah. It was a cash offer. But so in BC, when you have a cash offer, and by cash offer, I mean no subjects. Like somebody says they're buying it. They don't have to do a home inspection. They don't need financing. They're buying it. 5 years ago, if you did that, it was considered sold. You could tell people as soon as the deposit check was in, which would usually be within 24 hours, you could tell people what it sold for. Well, because of bidding wars in 21 and 22 and people paying $200,000 over asking and being greased by realtors to pay over, which is why people don't like realtors, because realtors are very pushy to get deals done. To be fair to realtors, many clients wanted their realtors like, hey, we want this house no matter what. So the realtor's like, well, I guess you better offer 10% over asking. So I came in being a realtor right in the very end of that, in the craziness, early 22. Because of that.
Why'd you become a realtor?
Well, somebody asked me that the other day. Somebody asked me the other day, when you became, because I list a lot of expensive places. I listed a farm yesterday for over $8 million, a chicken farm. I'm listing another one soon. People said, oh, did you expect to get those listings when you became a realtor? And I said, you don't expect anything because that leads you to great disappointment. It's just like I always say, right? In marriage,
you thought about it though, like you didn't do it for
no reason. And I'll tell you why. I was pretty sure. I told them I thought I would, and the reason I said that was because in probably in 2017 or 18 already, I was buying and selling stuff and doing a lot of cattle deals and hay deals. And I put together, and I wasn't, it could have happened anyways, but like I kind of like connected all the dots, and 3 farms transferred in Abbotsford, and all pretty expensive, between 5 and 7 million, 3 of them. So it was a pretty big deal. And I didn't know much about realtors and fees, but I just did it at 1%, on 17 million or whatever. And I'm like, that's a lot of money. If I would have had my license, I could have made some money here.
Yeah.
And I like the social aspect of it. I like the relational piece of it. I like doing the deals, like actually the complexity of selling farms with quota and sometimes thinking outside the box, and ulterior financing and vendor takebacks and lots of different things that you do that when you sell a house, you typically just sell the house and it's pretty straightforward. It's financed through a normal bank. But
so I'm assuming this adds a bunch of time to your week every week. You were pretty busy in 21. What did you cut out? Did you get rid of anything?
I just spent less time with my wife. bad joke. Didn't spend a lot with her in 21 either. I think back we had 3 kids under 3 years old. Went from 2 kids to 5 kids in 3 months, right? When the 3 littles came. And then for some reason in 23, she thought we should take a 6th child. She must have had an easy day. Actually, ironically,
That was her.
it was her doing. So I did not do that. A lot of people put all the bad decisions in our family on me and all the good ones on her, which there's some truth to that. But she was gone to a conference with some lady friends. It was a foster adoptive conference or something in Ontario with some great ladies. And we got the phone call about the baby that we have now living with us as a foster boy about that. And I just put it on her. I said, hey, I'm not doing that well here right now without you here. If you think it's a good idea to add a 6th kid, and it was supposed to be short term, and it always is. So, I mean, we should have probably known better, but it was definitely a situation where it wasn't meant to be what it has become. And so she said, oh no, I think we should. And it's been a beautiful thing, and it's a beautiful family.
Beautiful kid.
Yeah, a very beautiful kid, and we know, and his family's wonderful, his family. But so we're fostering him right now. We don't know, we have no idea how that's going to look going forward. But back to the realtor thing, I think that, you joked about the commissions. I mean, farms obviously a lot larger, but farms don't necessarily sell. And
So
sometimes,
you say you don't actually make that much.
a commission is 2.5%, typically 3%, somewhere in there,
on
right?
$8 million.
Yeah, and then you split it with the person buying.
Yeah.
Right, and usually in half, or you might keep a little more because you have all your advertising costs. I usually run, my advertising bills anywhere from $3,000 to $15,000 a month, right? So it's a lot. I'm marketing my farms in Ontario and Alberta, all the places and I've had people fly out in the last few weeks to look at stuff because of that. So
yeah.
Huh,
interesting.
Yeah. So it's a feast or famine thing too. It's similar to your world where it's you don't kill, you don't eat. And I think that's healthy, but in a way it also creates problems if you do sell a lot. A lot of realtors in 22 just took on extravagant payments and lots of, rental properties and just things that were totally fine when they were doing 3 or 4 or 5 deals a month. And then now I've heard of realtors doing nothing for 9 months this year.
Well, it actually it makes me think of a proverb. I wish I would have remembered where it was that I read a couple weeks ago, and it said, wealth can be good, but wealth with wisdom is better, or something like that. It was one of Solomon's proverbs. And I was thinking about how generally when someone gets a lot of money or has starts earning a lot of money is they start making bad decisions. I mean, I made a lot of it myself when I started making much money. And I think those are just you're already making those decisions bad before, but they're on such a small scale that they're not having that big of an impact. But you blow it up, and then all of a sudden it becomes a big problem. And so just being faithful with a little allows you to be faithful with a lot and do it well.
What I found fascinating in my life is that I make more money now than I did when I was 25. When I was 25, I worked twice as hard, physically twice as hard for sure, and just twice as hard, twice as driven as I am now. I mean, I'm still probably pretty driven, but I was just grinding so hard. And I think that that's probably God's blessing in people's lives, because when you are in your early 20s, you're not that smart. You think you're really smart. Yeah. You know everything at that point. You people that are listening right now that fall in that camp, they're really smart ones. Haven't asked for advice yet. You know who you are. But just in general, people, wisdom comes with age. Yes. And actually I get mortified even now. I'm 40. I'll be in a meeting or I'll be somewhere and I'll be talking a lot and I'll be go home and be I know that in 10 years from now, I'm going to look back on the things I said tonight and be embarrassed about the ridiculousness. So
actually, one thing my dad taught me, he said, always be the last to speak in a meeting.
You told me that a while ago. I've not forgotten that.
Yeah. And if he goes, if the decision's already made, it won't make a difference if you say anything, then also don't say anything. You don't even even if you're last to speak, but you don't need to speak anymore, then don't speak.
Okay, if the room's unified, you're in a board meeting or an elders meeting, room, you just let it go.
Yeah.
Okay. Unless you felt really convicted that the things are going in the wrong direction, I guess.
And interestingly enough, I seen a clip from Jeff Bezos, who owns Amazon, or 16% of it, a couple weeks ago, and he says when he has meetings, he always starts with the lowest ranking person in the room to give their opinion, and he moves up from that. He goes, because the likelihood of you giving your opinion after your leader has given his opinion goes way down. You just won't, people just won't share it because they're just well,
hey, the smart person already shared. How am I gonna?
Yeah,
which is a bit. I mean, obviously, I can understand why people would feel that way, but perspective is everything. And somebody in a different role in a different tier of whatever the company is just going to have a very valid perspective, but just very different.
We're humans, though, right?
Yeah. Interesting.
So you emceed a conservative event last night?
Yeah, I did. Not short notice.
Conservative what? Like BC conservative?
BC, yeah, the BC Conservative Party. Now the United Party. I mean, I don't know. Most people probably know this, but the United Party basically is no longer.
Yeah.
Kevin Falcon decided to not have run. It'll be interesting to see how
What's the name of the party now?
It's the BC Conservative Party.
Okay.
The other party is no more.
Okay.
The other right-leaning, if you want to call it that. They wouldn't even have called themselves that. They would have called them the center free enterprise.
And the BC Conservatives are right-leaning only on fiscally.
No, I wouldn't say that.
No,
I wouldn't say that. I think that what came even out of the dinner last night. It was a fundraiser dinner, and a friend of mine, their family, they put a lot of effort into it and asked me to MC. And I mean, as always, I went in with no preparation, so I don't think I butchered it too bad. But it was interesting just to hear the candidates even speak. Right, different values for sure. Different, not all the same things they're passionate about. I think that what really came out of it is that. If you were going to draw a line in the sand of what the difference would be is that, and you can see it even at our school board level in Chilliwack at the public school system, but it's like the families, like Conservative Party is going to let parents make a decision on the family, right? It's not going to be it's not going to be the school system that's going to decide what's best for the kid. Yeah. It's not going to be the government. It's not going to be some, and obviously if a parent's not doing the right things or whatever, we have systems in place where people step in, but there needs to be the criteria that a child be removed before you're going to start telling a parent how they're going to parent their child, right? Families have different values. It's a free country. You're still allowed to have different values. And I think that's what's really, to me, has shifted where it's like, now if you don't follow the thought that the cultural direction we're going, you're the bigot. And it's like, no, like I just think differently than you, and that should be okay. That's the country, And so I think when you say, hey, it's fiscally conservative, well, it's definitely fiscally conservative, which is what I'm excited about. The NDP government, we've had a boom years now with, full employment, very good employment. And our economy's been doing pretty well, and they've ran massive deficits. Now we're going to go into a trough, and we're starting to see it in the nonprofits that I'm involved in, that I'm on the boards of. And you're going to start to see governments justifying deficit spending because we're in hard times. It's like, no, like we've had deficit spending for years and massive deficit. I saw an article the other day federally that the government we have now took over in 2015, and in 8 years, they doubled the national debt. It's insane. They doubled the national debt. I'm going to say the number wrong, but I think it's 600 and some billion they added. And I remember when Harper, I'm getting older now. I remember when Harper was in power, and I was frustrated. He was running deficits. It was 2008 or whatever in the financial 2010 and stuff. Yeah. And they were like $2, $3, $4 billion deficits. And I'm like, these are massive, these $1 billion deficits. And
yeah, it's
just insane.
It's
not going to end well. And there's guys that listen to this that are just loading up on Bitcoin as we're talking, right? And buying gold. And
I actually brought Mark to come on, because Mark Van Ort did the Bitcoin podcast with me, because he wants to ask you a bunch of questions, because he said something about the fact that he goes that you thought
gold was better than Bitcoin.
No, that you would be a fan of Bitcoin. But anyway, I'll leave that discussion for that. I want to react to a video here about debt that I'm going to play, and Rhett's going to lay.
Is this the debt video?
Yeah. So while we're on the topic,
okay.
Honestly, I would just can this whole bill. Don't pass it. That's my recommendation.
What about the support, though, for the charging network? I mean, there are parts of this bill, and no?
No. Do we need support for gas stations? We don't. There's no need for support for a charging network. I would delete it. Delete.
Okay, all right.
I'm literally saying get rid of all subsidies. Also for oil and gas.
Think about also how this affects your competitors.
I mean, maybe they need it. I don't know. I'm in favor of deleting subsidies. I mean, when we started Tesla, there were no EV subsidies at all, and gasoline was super cheap. The $7,500 tax credit came as a result not of Tesla activity, but of General Motors lobbying for it. I would just say delete them all.
There's some other good things in this bill, some would argue. I mean, a lot of money earmarked for R&D. Would you want to put that towards something?
No.
Okay. All right, we're going to move on from the bill, because I think we get what you're saying on it.
In general, if we don't cut government spending, there's something really bad's going to happen. This is crazy. Our spending is so far in excess of revenue, it's insane.
It's fascinating how on a personal level, most people, maybe not initially, because if people have credit cards, they spend obviously more than they make. But eventually, every personal household gets to this spot where they come to some realization that they can't keep spending more than they make. But yet, we as people who are the government, we are the people, like we are the government, right? Eventually, we just elect people to represent us, to make decisions on our behalf. For some reason, we as a country think that we can just keep spending more and it's going to be totally okay.
Yeah.
And it's mostly because people don't understand the value of money. And I read a book recently, didn't make it all the way through yet, but it's called The Death of Money. I think it was about the Weimar Republic. It's, after the First World War, we learned about it in school, where basically, what was it called now? When it was the reparation payments, right, for the First World War. And they just basically saddled Germany with so much debt and crushed them so hard that they just started printing money to try bank the payments. So that didn't go well. But it's basically talking about some of the similarities and goes into deep detail about the devaluation of money. And people just do not understand that, right? People are excited when they get a raise. They don't realize that the
I was
dollar
telling someone the other day, when I
worth
graduated
way
in
less.
2009, I think I was making 50 grand a year.
Yeah.
What 50 grand a year could buy in 2009 is 100.
Still way more than 100 grand today.
Yeah.
I know.
Like way more. Like I would have to make 150 grand or something today. And that position today is not making 150 grand.
Well, and the irony is that the minute you get, so that's what they do. That's the government. So they devalue the money. Then you get paid 3 times as much, but then you're at a higher tax bracket. So instead of paying 35% tax, you pay 45%.
It's a robbery.
It's
What
is it? Taxation is theft.
Yes, it is. Okay. We got, we're at 20 minutes already. So
I thought this was going to be a short one because we both looked pretty frazzled when we came in here.
that's fair. I also hit record like 5 minutes before you get up. So actually, that's probably not actually my time. So anyways, Fruit of the Spirit, doing the series on the Fruit of the Spirit. Fruit of the Spirit today is gentleness. What do you think about gentleness, Gary? I'll read this quote first. So I looked it up. So Dane C. Ortland wrote a book, Gentle and Lowly.
Yes.
The Heart of Christ for Sinners and Sufferers.
Amazing book.
So that comes from a verse. Gentle and lowly comes from the verse describing who Jesus is. And so that's what I thought about first when I thought about today's word being gentleness. I was like, oh, that reminds me of that book that Jesus is described as gentle. But then, so I was looking at some quotes from that book. So this is one quote. As long as you fix your attention on your sin, you will fail to see how you can be safe. But as long as you look to this high priest, Jesus, you will fail to see how you can be in danger. Look inside ourselves, we can anticipate only harshness from heaven. Looking out to Christ, we can anticipate only gentleness. And I was like, wow, that is incredible.
I started reading that book for the second time again recently. I mean, I grew up, I guess in this, there again, I mean, I'm not a theologian, but I grew up kind of feeling like God was very distant. I mean, didn't believe God was real when I was a kid. Just kind of was something that I was force-fed and just rebelled against it for just reasons in my own heart. But definitely had this idea of God being, not equating the two, and definitely not thinking about the personality or the character that Jesus has, right? And Dane, he does an amazing job going through scripture, showing examples of, and Jesus is God, right?
Yeah.
And that's God's heart too. And it, like, so very much counter to what I kind of grew up with. And my idea, I grew up with very much a very harsh view of God.
Yeah.
God's and I mean, God is
authoritative.
Holy. Yeah. Very authoritative, very angry, and like Ken Deck would say, God is angry all the time. Right. And it's only because of Jesus that we're saved from that wrath. So that dichotomy I get now, but I definitely struggled with the idea that, with that concept of God being gentle, I feel gentle and compassionate, slow to anger, or the verse is, but verse.
There's a Chronicles of Narnia, I think it was, has a quote, really famous quote that I haven't even read these books, but I just love the quote that Aslan asks, is the lion safe? And the lion is Christ in these books. And he said, no, he is not safe, but he is good.
Yeah, so that's where I was going to go when you asked initially, what is gentle? Like, gentle doesn't mean you're weak.
No.
Gentle doesn't mean that you're not capable of whatever. I think it more just means that you're gracious.
Yes.
And all the other fruits of the Spirit come to mind, right?
Yeah.
Patient and kind. And I think that.
Well, gentleman, right? Like you're a real gentleman is someone that like doesn't blow their top, that doesn't isn't rude to people, that is caring, that is like, and is leading and serving. I actually remember this when I started going to Central at the Promontory campus there, and every week you had to set up the chairs beforehand because there's church in the gym, and every week Pastor Jonathan's there setting up the chairs, and I'm like, why is he setting up the chairs? Like, the pastor shouldn't be setting up the chairs. He should that's not his kind of work. Like he's above that sort of idea, and they're like, no, he's pastor means servant.
He's
Like,
leading.
He's leading.
Leading by example.
He's serving, like, and he's loving his people by doing there and doing the real work. And I was just blown away by that. Yeah. The verse in the Bible that says that Jesus is gentle and lowly is this. And Jesus said, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart." So for frazzled.
Pretty frazzled.
Yeah.
One of my favorite verses.
Okay, Proverb of the week. A little bit of a different angle here. There's some overlap, but don't waste your time on fools, for they will despise the wisest advice.
Is there a verse about throwing pearls before swine, or
Yeah, that's another verse. Yeah,
would that be similar? That's the first verse
yeah. I mean, it seems similar to me. I'm like, what I thought about was what you told me a couple years ago when I was frustrated about trying to help a bunch of guys that didn't want help.
Yeah.
And you said, like, why are you wasting time with those guys? Like, you can go find 100 guys that do want help. Like, go talk to those guys. Like, you can have way more impact. Don't chase after people and that don't necessarily want help. And I still think it's good to, if you see something in someone that they can need help and to like pursue to a certain degree. But I think there's also something to be said about the fact that, like, if we all have a finite amount of energy, like, if you can spend it on people that actually are willing to receive help, you can do a lot more good.
Yeah, another thing I've kind of turned towards or tried to is really investing people that seem to have not leadership capabilities, but just people that are going to just be disciples later on themselves. You can go, some people are very self-centered. Yeah, they do want to do better, and they'll even put in the work so their life can be better, but are they really going to transition into pouring into others? And hey, who do I see around me that kind of could use some encouraging, and most people just need encouragement. Most people just need friendship. They need somebody to believe in them and kind of encourage them and challenge them. And that balance, back to that gentleness thing, but it's like, that's something where I think I can be too harsh sometimes, but most men need a hard word.
Yeah.
Like in our world, most people are just ducking for cover all the time.
Word.
An honest word. Yeah, but honesty feels harsh when you are in a tough spot, right?
Yes.
When you just right away think, man, that's not very nice. But I mean, yeah, the truth does hurt. It doesn't need to be said in a hurtful way, but
gentle way.
It needs to be said in a gentle way. Yeah. But also, when a man takes a hard word, this truth and he takes it to heart, and you've said it to him, then there's this bond and this trust where it's like, wow, you cared about me enough to risk our relationship to speak truth to me, and vice versa, right? It's like, wow, you took that, you're willing, like the respect you have for someone when they can take a hard word from you. And like, I have that with some of my friends, you'd be one of them, where it's like, hey, you know what? There's some things that are said where it's like, oh, that's a stinger. Okay, no, I need to take that.
That's how you grow, right? I don't know how else you move forward unless you open yourself up.
You don't grow if you're comfortable.
No.
Right.
You have to open yourself up to those things.
But our whole culture is about being comfortable.
Yeah.
It's about being comfortable financially, into retirement, in our daily life, on our weekends, everything, right? Like everything is about nicer and more comfortable. And so that's why I love the podcast of Brian
McConaughey.
Yeah.
Get
had an interesting meeting like 3 days after our last recording when we talked about that podcast. That podcast would have been released yesterday, obviously.
Yeah.
But I met someone else that's spent years on the Thai-Cambodia border and is heading back there in 3 weeks to go meet him.
Oh, meet Brian.
Or meet.
Okay.
Sorry, meet Rat, like with the organization Rat, right? And very, very, kind of reiterated everything he said. It's not for anybody to go there. You're not going there. Just go to the website and donate money, right? Yeah. So.
Interesting. Bill called me at 1:30 when we were supposed to start recording. And, and I said, I can talk to you until Gary gets here.
That could be quite a while.
Yeah. Well, he said, so he just listened to the podcast and he's like, interestingly, when you mentioned the weed thing, initially my first reaction was judgment. And then I started listening and realizing that, like, oh wow, like why do I think my vices are better than those vices? And like he started so we talked through that, and I said, yeah, Gary's vice is being late,
and a few others. Did he listen to the podcast about us talking about weed?
Yes.
Okay. Did you get any other feedback from that podcast yet?
Yeah. DJ gave me some feedback. He said I just was very defensive. And I was like, I didn't think I was, but maybe I was. But yeah, I haven't really talked to anybody else.
You were way more defensive than you were when you talked to me off the podcast, which I think is unfortunate because I think your heart is one of wanting to be fully sober and doing the right things, and it may not have come across that way, which is not fair to you.
Yeah.
And I think, and that is the problem with recording things. I said that to my wife too. Like, you take one snippet of one sentence that we say on here and you take it out of context, as with anybody's words or just people saying a dumb thing. I mean, everybody says the wrong things at times, right?
But I do think if someone like the people that closest to me, their opinions haven't changed because they know the whole thing, and like then you have levels.
No, but when you put yourself in a spot where you're allowing your stuff to be shared anyways, then I mean you are a witness to everybody, right? So then you're in the spot where you have to account for the fact that you're putting yourself out there.
Yes. But if you've only listened to, like, let's say someone got sent only that piece of the podcast and didn't listen to the other episodes we've done, I think over time you start to get a more well-rounded picture.
You do. Yeah. Ultimately, and there's a lot of sayings about it and a lot of history there, but I think the old saying is walk a mile in somebody's shoes, right? But just like, hey, how well do you know someone and have you walked their journey? And I mean, yeah, we don't need to, we're not the judges, right? So just.
Okay, I want to react to one more video here. It's the first week we're doing this and seeing how
I don't know if I want to react. Is this one we're going to watch?
Yeah. Yeah, so the title of this video is...
I don't think I want to watch it.
How Russell Brand's life has changed since being baptized. I like this even more that you don't want to watch it.
I don't want to watch it. I don't want to watch it.
Why not? It's 1 minute. You don't have to say anything. If you don't want to talk,
I'll let
afterwards,
you do the talking. I'll sit in silence. Wouldn't that be a beautiful thing?
Christ chooses us. I wish I'd known earlier. I wish I hadn't thought that I was too clever for the religion of my grandmothers. I thought that I was too smart. I thought somehow that I knew what was in the Bible even without reading it. Reading it is blowing my mind on a daily basis. I can't believe the profundity, the depth, the incredible beauty, the deep truth available to all of us. And I know there are many ways of receiving the Lord's truth and the Lord's wisdom, but it's transforming me very quickly. I didn't make a choice, Tucker, and I mentioned the way that you operate as well, that there is a kind of surrender. I'm not saying that I am without shame. I'm not saying that I am without fear. I'm not saying that at points I don't feel compromised and uncertain. I'm saying that since being baptized, since becoming Christian, since surrendering to Him, I feel His presence continually. I feel it now. I feel it in this moment. And I feel free.
So just to give some context first, so that was Russell Brand. He was interviewed by...
Who is Russell Brand?
So Russell Brand is a TV movie star that has done like all the raunchiest movies, and he is very well known for his doing all the drugs you can, and lots of them, and his sexual exploits and things like that. And so he has, in the last year, become a Christian, and he has it's like one of the craziest 180s I've ever seen. And so he came out and talked.
He's not doing the drugs anymore?
No, he's clean off everything. Like, he is so sober, and he's just preaching on his social media as like just real stuff. It's awesome. But yeah, so I seen that clip because he got interviewed by Tucker Carlson, and he was just sharing on there, and I love that clip where he was just so honest about the fact that Jesus picks us, and he loves us before we love him. And what I also thought was interesting, how he said, like, I had big opinions on the Bible before I started even reading it. And like, I didn't really start reading my Bible till like really digging into it till probably, only started really reading it very consistently this year since January, where like I haven't missed any days, or I just catch up and read a full plan. But how much, when you're actually taking the time to read it, I love reading it in the New Living Translation version, because you can actually understand what it says, and like it's more layman's terms, but just the amount of truth and wisdom in it. It's like it's too easy to believe it's just something you're supposed to do, but you don't actually take the time to understand what it says. And
it's hard to take the time. Yeah. It's embarrassing for me how hard it is to be disciplined to set aside the right amount of time.
Then it's a belief thing, though, right? Then it's a belief that whenever we struggle with reading it, that we don't actually believe the value that it gives us. Like, if you get a letter from Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates about how
it
to
wouldn't matter what was going on in your day. You just stop the day and you'd read it.
Yeah, you'd read it, and you'd study it. It'd be like, how do I get rich? Like, how do I do this? And this is like the book of life. Yeah. This is how you get rich for billions and billions of years.
I just saw.
Why didn't you want to watch it?
Well, I'll tell you why I was triggered. Because yesterday, I think I was checking out something on Instagram, and then I saw in probably in the feed somewhere, somebody else had shared it on Facebook. It was on social media. It was Mark Driscoll doing a running commentary, and I'm thinking it was on the prayer that he did. Maybe, I don't know. It was just. It's back to what you said about judging, but I just think, first of all, celebrity Christianity isn't Christianity. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he has his journey and he's allowed to share it. But like,
I agree.
People, it doesn't matter if you're in a Dutch Reformed church and the pastor's the Pope or whatever, wherever you are. It's like, it's dangerous anywhere, right?
Yeah.
We sure don't want to be worshiping people.
Yeah.
People are really sinful and they fall off the pedestal real fast. So there's only one Savior. And so I feel like that with everything. And then, so I struggled, like Driscoll, was super influential in my walk early on. Like Marie and I used to go down to Seattle, go to church there. I listened to all the sermons back in the day.
Me and my dad used to watch them together.
Okay. Yeah. He preached a lot to angry young men.
Yeah.
That worked. And I fell in that camp.
Okay.
And just challenged them to treat women well, and there again, like it did a myriad of leadership things that weren't healthy and eventually really tarnished his reputation and the church's reputation, unfortunately. Which is unfortunate. So I have huge PTSD, like,
when you see a clip from Driscoll.
I shouldn't say that, but I think it was Christianity Today, or I'm saying the wrong one, but they did a whole podcast series on the rise and fall of Mars Hill Church. And there again, I mean, I think I disagree with that too. I think we as Christians don't need to be, we can learn from these things, and it's not that it should, but very quickly it's sensationalized. And now we're talking derogatively about any church. It's not healthy. It's like, no, like the church is the church, and there's believers in most churches, or a lot of churches, and far be it from us as Christians to be disparaging of what other Christians are doing, unless it's literally heretical. And even then, how helpful is it when we're throwing stones at others? So when I saw him doing a running commentary on it, it's like, hey, are you the judge of Russell's whatever he's saying? Or it's like, like I always think, just read your Bible, like you pull out the Bible and just read your Bible, It's mostly a personal journey, right? And then it should be showing how we treat others and stuff. Our walk should show that. We don't need to be doing a lot of preaching and criticizing others. I didn't even watch the thing, so now I'm really surmising, but I kind of know.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Okay. What did you think of the clip?
Oh, I didn't disagree with what he said. No, but I'm not going to go to Russell Brand, who's a new Christian in the last year, to get my theological teaching and be pumped about it. You know what I'm saying? It's like, hey, there's pastors all over on podcasts that I listen to.
I wouldn't recommend that either. I was just,
I'm going to listen to a Timothy Keller sermon, or I'm going to listen to Russell Brand.
Yes, yeah, or John Piper.
You're a big John Piper fan.
Actually, I listened.
Is he a celebrity for you?
He
Would you get him to sign your Bible?
He used to be.
Okay.
No, I met him a couple times now, and I did that. Actually, one part I don't understand.
Very gifted preacher.
The signing the books thing. I'm like, you're
weird.
It is
weird.
Very weird.
It's weird.
Yeah, but he just there was an interview that he just posted of him and John MacArthur interview each other. Okay. And it just got posted, I think, 2 weeks ago. They're so old, but MacArthur's.
Are you talking about the guys are so old?
Yeah, John. The best. They're like, I think John MacArthur's in his late 80s. Like he's
got a lot of energy, man. It's impressive.
But he was saying about Piper. He goes, what he most appreciated about Piper. He goes, he didn't know anybody else that loved Christ as much as he did. And I was like, man, that is like if I ever get a compliment that like surpasses all compliments, it'd be that. Like,
be proud of that, eh?
Well, just like it's the most beautiful thing.
It is a beautiful thing. He does the 3-minute devotions. Marie listens to those a lot, daily stuff. He does a lot, and those are great because they're pretty easy to listen to. Just like a power forward.
Yeah, it's good. Okay, we are way over time. One last thing here.
Speaking of which, are you going to speak about the one last thing in overtime, or
what last thing in overtime?
Well, you said you had one last thing, but maybe it needs to be talked about in the.
Well, I want to say that right now, if you go to my Patreon, you get to watch all the videos for free for 7 days. So it's a free 7-day trial. So all the Dutchies out there, they're like, we're not sure if Trevor was calling. We're not sure if we should pay for this or not. You can go watch them all for free, then cancel your card before 7 days are up. Or you can just...
I never let my wife do that because she never cancels. I don't ever sign up for a free trial. I'm completely unhinged.
Okay.
No, nobody ever cancels, but these people might.
These people...
They're pretty valid.
These people... I'm just saying, if it would be awesome if you could support the show. There's like $5. It's if the value's there for you.
USD.
USD. I would much appreciate the support. It would help to make the show a bit better, and all the money will go back into the show as well. So for some more interviews. So if you can, patreon.com/Furiously Curious. If you do sign up and support the show, you also get access to overtime, which we will record now. Thanks for watching, guys. Until next time. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Briefcase in the Barn. Hope you enjoyed it. If you want to listen to some overtime clips, I'm going to play a few right now, and you can kind of get an idea of what overtime's all about. And if you want to watch those, you can go to patreon.com/Furiously Curious and enjoy those. So this is what you would get with that. Take a look. I was like, if I want to be liked and respected, I have to get rich, buy a house,
Work hard,
and become somewhat religious.
Hurt people, but a lot of hurt people realize that people need help and they want it. And so the social work field is like that. People that have a great heart for people.
Because of the podcast, he got invited to go, him and his family got invited to go get flown out and all expenses paid for a trip for him to be a speaker at something. Okay, if you enjoyed those, again, patreon.com/Furiously Curious, $5 a month. And we started these in episode 4 already, so you can go back and watch all the different overtime episodes if you're interested in that. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Please like the videos, subscribe to the channel, rate the show on the different podcast apps so that you can do that on. It goes a long way. Leave a comment on social media. Send some feedback via the website, furiouslycurious.co, in the contact form there. Also, if you have questions or topics you think we should talk about, feel free to shoot me a message there. That's going to be you can send messages anonymously if you want. So hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in the next one.